Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Larry Edwards, who is, and has a most unusual title, he is a new deputy to the chancellors, both chancellors, the City University and the Board of Education, for Recruitment and College Preparation. Mr. Edwards has a long history, 41 years with the Board of Education. He is a graduate of Queens College, and he has received his bachelor's degree and 2 master's degrees from Queens College. And he was appointed by both Chancellor Matthew Goldstein at the City University and Chancellor Harold Levy at the Board of Education, because we are working on a program to join the efforts of both institutions, since most of the students that we get at the City University come from the Board of Education, in order to ensure that we coordinate our efforts. So I welcome you because you have an assignment that is doubly difficult. What is the first step that you are doing?
First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. The first step that we're engaged in was, in fact, to take a suggestion of yours a number of months ago. We have traditionally had a College Now program for 12th grade youngsters who would then be going to the 13th or freshman year.
The College Now program is a program under which we at the City University go into the high schools of the city and try to provide instruction to the students who are about to graduate, in order to ensure that when they come to the City University, they don't require too much remedial instruction.
In addition, as you know, we also provide college-level courses for those youngsters in the 12th grade who are so qualified, and then when they go on to the university, they come in with advanced standing.
About 2 weeks after Harold Levy became the Chancellor, we held a joint press conference with Matt Goldstein and with William Thompson, the Chairman of the Board of Education, announcing that we were going to expand the College Now program to include working with the students in the high schools beginning in the 9th grade. And because up to now it's only been in the 11th and 12th grades, so that we can work with them, and perhaps in that fashion we can ensure that we will need to give them less remedial instruction at CUNY, and that's what led to your appointment.
And that's what led to the work on that first initiative, because we have already been working very hard with 6 college staffs and 19 high schools that have been identified. These are our larger zoned high schools in communities throughout the city. Youngsters who will be coming into the 9th grade, so obviously they're in the 8th grade now, getting ready to graduate and come on to high school. And as you were indicating, it's an opportunity to start 4 years before they would ever see a college campus, and to attack that dirty word remediation at its source, not to wait until they are almost ready for college. And so we are planning a program to start this September, with a good deal of work yet to be done in selecting staffs, and most important, selecting the children and getting the word to them and to their parents before they start a summer vacation that in fact something special is going to occur.
Now, the reason I wanted to start in the 9th grade is because the highest dropout rate in the public schools comes about in the 9th and 10th grades. What is that dropout rate, and why is it that it happens at that time?
The dropout rate at around that particular point is between about 15 to 20%. What we're talking about are youngsters who come into a high school setting. Unfortunately, some are just not prepared to do the level of high school work. There's a frustration. They, at some point, do not see the relevance to what it is that they are currently doing in school, to the life that they are engaged in.
And they don't realize that without a high school diploma, you're lost in this society, right?
Well, I think we all recognized in our life, and These are youngsters who every year have to recognize that the one thing in America that gives the opportunity is still education. Whatever else can exist, it is still recognized as that kind of common playing field. And it is up to us to try to give them and to instill in them the fact that what they are doing at 14 and 15 and 16 years of age is but a stepping stone to what will be their adult life and what type of an adult life they're going to have. And that's what this is in effect all about. And the enrichment of the college now for these ninth grade youngsters, we think, will be a perfect opportunity because we are going to provide some smaller classes for them. We're going to provide a day in which they can really focus on the 4 key subjects in order to have that support, because in a lot of ways you can reduce frustration by having an opportunity for them to truly understand, and time is the factor for them to understand what they're doing.
See, to me, a 20% dropout rate is horrendous because it means we're losing a generation. So the most important achievement to me would be to see how we can encourage those kids to stay in school beyond the 9th and 10th grade, graduate from high school, and come to us at the City University. That's why I wanted to move the time when we get into the high schools back to the 9th grade.
Right. Well, we're all on the same page at this particular point, and that's the refreshing part. The 2 institutions are talking the same language and engaging in the same activities. So the idea that you had is now going to be a reality. And the hope is that this will not be a one-year initiative, that these youngsters will be seen as a cohort group through 4 years, and that a year from now we will start again with more students in order to, at some point, get to everyone that we need to get to. So
we got Mayor Giuliani has approved $5 million into the city budget, and we're working with the state to get the additional $5 million to be approved either in our budget or in the budget of the Board of Education. Now, on the other hand, we have a problem at the other side of the end of College Now, because we had established the College Now program at Kingsborough Community College, and now we have it at other colleges. And we find that one of the big problems is that we get a lot of the kids who go into College Now, decide to go to college, but many of the best ones don't want to come to CUNY. So what I'd like to do is not only have a successful program of College Now in every high school, but to encourage them to come to us at the City University.
Well, in many ways, the City University is part of the option of most high school graduates. They are very much encouraged, and many of our advisors in the high schools today do not find that the youngsters are not applying to the university. The issue is with a whole variety of options before them, some deciding to, as can happen in any family where the youngsters decide not to live at home and then have a residency, that becomes a factor. But I think you're correct that one of the things we would have to do, and I think we need to do that even earlier on, I think we need to do that reaching into our middle schools. As the youngsters prepare for high school, they can also see this as a preparation for ultimately that word college, because the years come by, very, very fast. So I think that while the City University is in the mix very often, what goes into the decision to ultimately go wherever they may go is an important factor that needs to be looked at as far as many more of our youngsters considering the colleges of the university.
The other thing is I want us to reach into every high school, because I find that we get very few students coming to the City University from Bronx Science, where my son graduated from, Stuyvesant, and some of the excellent high schools that we have in the city. And now we are moving to improve all of the colleges at the City University. We now require that they be ready for college work before they can matriculate. And we brought in Ned Regan to be the president of Baruch, and we are conducting searches at the other colleges so we get top-flight professionals to be the presidents. But I hope that you'd go into some of these high schools and tell them that we now have higher standards at CUNY, so that they should come here.
I think that's an extremely important point because the word standards today is the key word throughout all of the educational world. The state, and therefore we in the school system, are involved in upgrading the standards, requiring much higher standards for youngsters to graduate from high school. At the same time that the university has done the same for their entrance to the senior colleges, and I think it's extremely important that that is a collective message, because it is a collective message today. We are really all talking about the same thing and enacting the same thing. Gets across to all youngsters, including those at the highest functioning of our high schools.
Well, now you have standards coming in to the high schools too, because the regions are requiring that everyone have a region's diploma. How do you think that's going to affect the students?
Well, I'm one that is maybe a bit more optimistic than some. I was around when they raised standards for the first time in the testing across the state, which we are now abolishing, called the Regents Competency Tests. Mm-hmm. They never existed before, and there was a minimal reading test grade for a youngster to come to high school. When those tests were introduced some 20 years ago, everyone said the kids can't do it. They'll drop out, they won't graduate. It didn't happen. Quite the opposite. They rose to the occasion, and more important, the system rose to the occasion to be of the support for these kids. And while the bar has definitely been raised now, I think we as a system have come to grips with the fact, and it's a small little word, it's all. All kids will, because there is no option. Well, if you don't have an option as a system, and you recognize that these are the children you are empowered to work with and support, then we will provide, as we are currently. That's the reason that the work or the collaboration with the university is so critical to us at this point in helping us to achieve this goal. One of the byproducts of this has been something which many people have been critical of the board for, and that is that the four-year traditional time frame to achieve the goal in this city has gone by the wayside.
And as long as they graduate from high school, that's the main point, because what's been going on
whether it takes 5 years
is
or right. Absolutely. Again, we're on the same page.
We'll be back after these announcements.
There may be some things this little girl won't do as well as other children, but this won't be one of them. Not if Sven Anderson has anything to do with it. Because for years he's been helping children like this to build their lives. The world needs a lot of Sven Andersons. Couldn't you be one of them? It's not your money. It's you we want. You're only a phone call away. A kid I had.
We're back today with Larry Edwards, who is Deputy to the Chancellors for Recruitment and College Preparation. That is, to both chancellors, the Chancellor of the City University and the Chancellor of the Board of Education. Larry, one of your other functions is to try to come to grips with the problem of teacher shortage, which, as you know, is perhaps the biggest problem that we have in the Board of Education. How do you think you can deal with that problem?
Well, I think the first thing we have come to realize is that what we very much share in common as two leading public school institutions is that our students become your students, who in turn become our young adults. And so the first thing is to recognize that both institutions share a common responsibility. It is not one or the other. And
one of the other things we do with these young adults is that they become teachers, because we provide, I think, probably the largest percentage of the teachers to the Board of Education in New York City.
That is correct, as well as providing the master's and post-service work for the teachers who, once they come in, then go on for higher license. So the relationship in regard to teacher ed is long established. What I think needs to be totally reviewed at this point is how the public school system can in fact become a richer laboratory for the teachers to have very practical experience within our schools and to come in even earlier on than they may traditionally do, in order to have, in addition to classroom work and research work that definitely is provided by the university, but to have the richness of both the classroom experience as well as having teachers and supervisors who can come in greater numbers than maybe exist now to be people who can be either guest lecturers or to provide mentoring relationships.
You mean you're kind of talking like an internship, right?
Absolutely.
Which would be, after all, we have internships for doctors. There's no reason why, since we are now working closely together, you cannot have the students who want to be teachers to go in and have an internship in the Board of Education, so they really know what's going on.
One of the other things that Chancellor Levy has talked to us about, and what we are expanding through our high school superintendencies, is to provide more pre-teaching motivational programs in the high schools, so that youngsters can have experience while high school students, limited in the fact of their own age, but very much experiences in schools, as well as taking courses similar to the college now with more liberal arts courses, now possibly taking some early on educational courses while still seniors in high school, in order to give them a leg up and also to give them an opportunity to see what teaching really is in very practical terms.
To encourage them to go into the teaching profession.
Very, very much so. I think this is an area that we all agree needs the help of both institutions, and under both chancellors' leadership, since both have put this very much as a top item on their agenda. Both, in fact, are talking about this as an issue. It's my hope that I can be able to bridge that gap between the institutions in very practical ways, because many things and many fine things are currently going on. That doesn't dismiss the fact of what is currently in existence, but the fact is that we need more of these, more teachers. We need more trained teachers. The state's new certification program, in similar ways to upping the requirements of youngsters, they very much have upgraded the requirements of adults.
And what are you doing about the current teachers who are not certified, who are teaching?
Well,
that's a large number, right?
This is, I don't want to get caught on a number. I think the number has been given officially at about 11,000 of our 77,000, current teachers. And one is to provide them with every opportunity to, in fact, get that certification. The key factor is you don't want to lose people who want to teach, but like every profession, there needs to be some basic certifying factor that, in fact, you can do that craft. That
so
you
they
have
would
been recognized.
Come back to CUNY or to another university?
There can be...
or would you do it at the Board of Education?
Well, there is talk to the issue, first, yes, to come back to the city university or to be in the city university. Some of these young people may have graduated with degrees in subject area and not gone back for pedagogical work. The other is, as Chancellor Levy has indicated, to look at the possibility of the board itself becoming an active partner in that delivery of an alternative means of education. This is in its exploratory stage, and the Chancellor has not fully fleshed out this particular program, but he is looking at a way in which we could take a more active part in this.
But that would require you be approved by the Board of Regents, huh?
I don't know all of the legal ramifications in regard to that, but we, like everyone else, are chartered under, anything we do is chartered under the Board of Regents and in turn the Commissioner.
Now, one of the other areas which is particularly of interest to me is your function in reaching out to parents and letting them know what is going on, because I find, especially in the Hispanic community, that many parents have had no idea of what was happening in terms of the students. For example, during the days of social promotion, parents from Puerto Rico, where I come from, for example, would assume if the student came in with a report card saying he was promoted, that it meant he or she was doing his work. But in fact, they did not know that everyone passed automatically. So there's a huge need to inform parents about what's going on.
Not to digress off on the promotion, but I think, as you recognize, and you have been a leading spokesman in this area, I acknowledge that, that particular issue effective for this year is hoping to rectify a situation that's existed. You're talking here in regard to communication is the #1 challenge in any large institution. 1 million plus children, in turn, their families. How do you effectively communicate in all of the languages needed for that communication? That is the biggest challenge of our system. I think, coming back to a previous issue that we talked about, that we can communicate to parents in regard to the standards piece, whatever we want to call it, requirements, whatever term we want to use. I think that parents in early childhood right through the college years need to truly understand the facts. They're not difficult facts to understand. And so there needs to be a way in which we communicate at all levels, some just basic facts of what happens if the youngsters in our elementary school and then they're moving to middle and then to high school and ultimately to college. It's all connected.
Okay, suppose now there are parents watching this program. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that things have started to change, that the education that their children are receiving at all levels is now education that is being provided by teachers who themselves have gone through a tremendous staff development program. This is underway. This is not something that started yesterday. Our teachers are now talking to each other, talking to their supervisors, talking at the schools and planning and actually implementing from those plans at all grade levels, at the earliest levels right through. The fact that the youngsters are being asked to do more than we ever asked them to do before, and that they are rising to the occasion, and the support we need is the support of a family, of a parent, of other members of a family, of the broader community, of the faith community, in supporting youngsters in the ability and their understanding that what they do today, what they do at any given time, prepares them for the next step. And that is a critical piece, and nobody should be left out of this.
Okay, now that's the point that I want to address, because I know there are many parents in areas like the South Bronx where there are many schools that have been under Regents review, meaning that the schools are awful for many years, and the parents don't know what to do. They know that the school is not a good school, but they don't have the resources to send their kids to private schools, and there are no private or parochial schools around. So they're frustrated because their children are going to these schools which are acknowledged to be inferior schools. So what would you say to those parents?
The first thing I would say is do not give up on your school. We've had a long history of what Chairman Badillo was talking about, of schools under registration review, and have worked with the state. And for any given school that is put on this list, we have an equal number, if not more, schools who get off of this list and get off of the list in a relatively short time, including schools from communities within the South Bronx. And part of it is because people do not abandon those schools. They don't run from those schools. They recognize what the problems may be, and as a collective community of a principal and of supervisors and of teachers and of parents and of the children and the broader community have worked very, very hard to raise the standards within that school. Because again, I come back to that word all. No one is exempt from these requirements. It doesn't matter where you live. And therefore, very, very often with the additional financial support, which very much comes with these schools under registration review, and with the additional help of staff folks who come in to work with these schools. Many of them have had the opportunity to improve, and the youngsters have the opportunity to go on as prepared as anyone else.
Wouldn't it be wise to, at least in those schools, try to get certified teachers who have some experience? Because I understand that the uncertified teachers are to a large extent coming from those schools.
You're right on target again, because Commissioner Mills has indicated that he will not accept any teachers in SURF schools that are not certified as professionals in that field. You're right.
Well, that's certainly one of the key points, and if the Board of Education follows that mandate of Commissioner Mills, then it would be more likely that the parents would not give up in those schools. But in any event, I know you have a huge job, so I
Yes.
welcome you with us
thank
at
you
CUNY.
very, very much.
And
Appreciate it.
be working with you to ensure that you are successful. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, sir.